What's up, guys? Welcome back. My name is Calvin Trieu. I'm a performance and nutrition coach, a first-year PhD student, and also the host of this podcast. What's happening, people? Welcome back. First things first, if you are a homie, if you have been enjoying these episodes, please make sure that you are subscribed, leave a rating, stuff like that. Any of those type of things really does help the channel grow, really does help me know that you guys are enjoying this. You guys are tuning in. You guys want to listen to me yap every Sunday morning before I release this on Mondays. And yeah, so if you like this stuff, if you have been finding value out of this, really appreciate the sub, the like, the review, all those things. Those are just really helpful signals for me to know that you guys are enjoying it, and we'll go from there. So today is episode is more almost like a little workshop, if I want to put it that way. Yeah, that's what I want to do. So I want to help you build a workout program. I want to do something when it comes to very full body. I feel like not many people do full body splits. I feel like the arguments in the camps have been mainly traditional bro lifts, so like biceps, triceps, etc., or push and pull or things like that. So very more most people do very traditional muscle group approaches, and those who have been in the game longer, look, you go with if you know, you know, then people start playing with like push and pull. They start doing movement patterns. They start doing full body splits. They start doing you can kind of hear from somebody, and this is not me like judging. It's just that most people's introduction, their entry point when it comes to training exercise, have really been more of bodybuilding, more yeah, bodybuilding prep bro splits rather than good strength and conditioning and programs and splits that really meet you with where you are at, with your goals, your lifestyle, your constraints, how much time and energy you do have to devote and commit to training per week. And with you have your constraints, you have your conditions when you set things up. And so you want a program to really match you, one that actually progresses you, one that makes you feel like you're making progress, having fun, and it just makes sense. Like, for example, if you're somebody who is very busy, you really only have time and to hold on, actually, yeah, if you really only have time for like, or that you want to give, and there's just no, like, I'm not judging or shaming you. It's if where you are at is you just want to maybe devote 2-3 hours a week to intentional exercise, then you doing a bro split of chest and triceps and then back and buys, or a whole day for just quads, a whole day for just hamstrings, a whole day for a certain muscle group doesn't make sense with the amount of days, amount of frequency that you have available to you. It just doesn't make sense. Or if you're also the other type of person who is similar to me, where you want to train, but you also want to do other things too. Say you want to run, you want to ride your bike, you want to swim, you want to go hiking, you want to do other, you want to use your body and actually use your fitness outside the gym than just be in a gym all the time. You know, so that is where things get sticky and where people are like, hey, I'm trying to hit all of these different muscle groups, but I only have 2 or 3 days available to me. And so it just doesn't match. So I'm a big fan of full body splits. Full body splits are really awesome. So for example, if you're somebody who we're just going to run with the scenario that you are the avatar, you are the person that really wants to devote 2 or 3 days a week. And so I want to walk you through how to build a sample workout program, one that way you have like a exercise skeleton, the framework for it, and it's almost like on Tinder how, or like dating apps, you just like swipe, or on social media you just start swapping out movements because you understand what to place there, and you can just kind of swipe your way through. So I'm gonna like walk you through this here. And if you, yeah, I don't have a lot of fancy cameras and stuff like that. It's just this one camera. So if you're listening on Apple Podcast, you really can't see me, but there's a video to this episode that is on Spotify and also on YouTube, which my handle, calvintrueco, is essentially the same thing across all of it. And the podcast name is the Calvin True Podcast. So cool. Let's dive into it. So I'm going to assume that you are somebody who wants to commit to 2 or 3 times a week. And so what do we put down? And how many exercises? So when you go to the gym, it doesn't have to be, actually, let me take a step back here. This framework works well whether you have limited equipment at home and you are also in a fully equipped gym. It's just we're leading from a very principle based approach here. So No matter what conditions you are in, of course, if you have more limited equipment, you do have to get a bit more creative, and that's okay. That's also what makes exercise fun because every single rep, every movement matters. Of course, if you have a specific goal, like you're trying to compete at a powerlifting meet or Olympic weightlifting meet, or you have like a specific strength-based goal or lift goal or things like that, then of course your approach changes. But we're just assuming you're somebody who wants to train 2 to 3 times a week, and you can do this across either at home with minimal equipment, a apartment gym, a work gym, or a fully equipped gym at a gym. And you also want to do other things also. Like you want to be able to walk, you want to use other parts of your free time for other things that you care about. So 3 days a week, full body splits. How many exercises should you put in now? So with this one, it's not a game of how many movements, exercises you can touch, especially if this is your constraint and you want to appropriately dose the movements and load them. And if you only have 30 minutes, you have 30 minutes. It doesn't make sense to put down 10 exercises if you only have 30 minutes. Then you're going to give them all very subpar effort, like 50% effort, and you're going to get nothing out of it. And so with exercise, when it comes to lifting, we're going to use the assuming that you're the avatar of you want to build muscle, you want to maintain muscle, you just want to just train. Like this is not for anything specific goals, power, speed. We're trying to just train, hit as many movement patterns as possible, feel healthy, be as holistic and well-rounded as we can. So that's what we're going to go with. So full body split. Say you have 30 minutes, then you have to make sure that you're able to do enough for that 30 minutes, or 45 or 60. Let's assume you have 45 to 60 minutes. Okay. So 45, 60 minutes, what movements do you put in? Now, instead of viewing this through the lens of muscle group specific, I would shift your lens to a more movement pattern perspective. So the fundamental movement patterns that humans can do are squat, hinge, push, pull, and locomotion. And so squatting, you can think of that as like you squatting down to use the toilet. Hinge, think of that as you just standing and your hip hinges back, and it's kind of like you have groceries in your hands and the car door is open and you try to just like hit the car door to close with your butt, or do like a deadlift. So that's hinging. So any squatting pattern movements, any hinging pattern movements, and then I said locomotion. So this can be kind of dissected down a little bit, but think you are walking. It's you moving. So locomotion, think of this as you can do it weighted or unweighted. So this is where these fundamental movement patterns, there's so many extra layers to it that would take a long time for me to go through all of it. So I'm just trying to categorize this as best as I can here. So locomotion, think of that as something very cyclical. You kind of like walking and moving. I like to bucket that together like that when I'm programming, just to make it at least streamline a little bit. It doesn't have to be super like perfect, but think of something more aerobic, cyclical pattern. So it could be you on a bike, you on a rower, you walking. Now we can do this weighted. So it'd be like you carrying kettlebells or dumbbells along your side. So that's like a weighted carry. You can, now this is where it jumps into like loadability. So you can like carry something on your side, carry something in front of you, carry something with one kettlebell in front of you in the front rack position and one besides your side. And then you can also switch sides. You can also do one in front of you, one above you, both arms above you, weight behind you. There's a lot of different ways you go about it. So the different loadability standpoints is a bilateral movement, meaning both arms or both legs, unilateral, one arm, one leg, ipsilateral. Sorry, I'm getting a little too ahead of myself, so we'll move that over. But yeah, fundamental movement pattern, a squat pattern, a hinge pattern, locomotion, weighted or unweighted, a push and a pull. So pushing something in front of you, pushing something above you. So that could be separated down more into a horizontal push and then a vertical push, and same for pulling. So a horizontal pull and a vertical pull. And you can do a lot of these things bilaterally. So both arms, both legs, unilateral, one arm, one leg. And with that, that does go into the loadability. So you can load things with like weight in both arms, like I said, load something with a dumbbell in one arm, ipsilateral. Say we're doing a lunge, walking lunges, or a split stance lunge. It's like a stationary one. whatever legs in front that's working for the lunge, holding that weight on that leg. So same arm, same leg, you can think, or opposite leg, opposite arm. So those are different ways that can be weight can be loaded, or put something on your back or in the front rack, or something through like a rotational thing, like any landmine twist, or kind of like Russian sit-ups, but with weights. You're rotating with it, so you're loading through like a whole 180 or 360 type of like movement. More like 180, yeah. So there's those movement patterns, ways you can load them, and then planes of motion. So think of planes of motion as you moving something. Imagine there's like a line that's cut through you. So right down the middle, if you're like watching this on YouTube or on Spotify right now, imagine I'm just like a person, like I am a person. I'm just standing, and there was a line that cut straight down my body. And so I can only move my arms forward and back. So like when you walking forward and back, that's you navigating the world through a sagittal plane. And now frontal, imagine that line that cuts me like side to side. So then I'm like standing almost like a mime, and I can only move like, or like a lobster going back and forth like Mr. Krabs. So just like back and forth. No, not Mr. Krabs. Like if you've ever seen Futurama, Dr. Zoidberg, how he like puts his hands up, he goes pop, 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 side. The front, that's what I have always thought of. And then transverse, think of that as like you twisting. So now you have an idea from a principle base that there's several different movement patterns, a lot of different ways you can load somebody, and then planes of motion that you can move through. So now you kind of have some of those things in the background. How do we split things up? How many exercises should we do? So with 3 days, I like to go something with like, since there was those 5, maybe we do those 5. So do something with a squat pattern, do something with a hinge pattern, then something that's more of a locomotion or a core pattern, do something with a push pattern, and do something with a pull pattern. So you can do that for each 3 days. And the reason why I always start with lower body stuff before upper body is because you get dumber as the session goes on. So that's honestly the big thing, because so much of this is very neurological based and like mentally like focusing and like all of that. I like to put lower body stuff first, always before the upper body. It's just because throughout the session, you're more fresh at the beginning. And then throughout the session, you just get dumber and your will to do things, and you just get more tired. So that's just a funny way I put it, is you just get dumber throughout the session. And so you don't want to save your most intensive movement at the very bottom, like doing a back squat or squatting with a machine like a hack squat or pendulum, or doing like RDLs or like hinge based movements that require you to recruit a lot of muscle groups and very high nervous system drive. You're going to be really capped out, and you're not going to be able to drive the intensity you need if you're the longer you go through the session. So you want to allocate more of those movements that require a lot more oomph from you, so to speak, at the very beginning, while you're still smarter, and then you get dumber. Not to say that you're like taking away things from like the push or the pull, but those ones I've just noticed you can work through that a little bit better. That's the most science way I can put it. Yeah. Like motor recruitment, rate coding, things like that. Nervous system, fatigue sets in, a lot of those different things. But really, just to speak in layman terms, you just get dumber. And so you can still push and grind through it. But the squat or the hinge, you don't really want to grind through that in that way. Not so much if you can help it. But if you swap it, it's not the end of the world also, but that's a really good framework to go through. Now, how many exercises should you do? It really depends on how much time you have and how much time you want to give. So if you have 60 minutes, boom, now you probably can do all 5 plus more. And then if you have less time, like 30 minutes, then maybe you just have to pick 4. So maybe one lower, one that's a core locomotion thing, one that's like an upper movement thing. Maybe it's a pull. Or if you don't want to do any core stuff, you can just do a squat pattern, a hinge pattern, a push pattern, and then a pull pattern. So you can really reconfigure this and play with this skeleton as many ways as you want. And so now that we're going through those patterns, that opens up a lot of different options of what do you want to fill in the blank with. So squatting pattern, you can be squatting body weight, you can be squatting on My goodness, I forgot one of the biggest things: lunging patterns. I'm so sorry. Squatting pattern and lunging patterns work together too. So at the very top right there, that's sorry. So squatting pattern or lunging pattern, that works for it. Wasn't lunging patterns aren't part of the fundamental movement patterns like the seven, since there's so many different things. So that's why it just kind of hit me. So lunging patterns. So one day you can do a squatting pattern first. The next day, day two could be a lunging pattern. Day three could be a squatting pattern. So it could be like every other, or you can flip that: a lunging pattern and then a squat pattern and then a lunging pattern again between those 3 days. So you can reconfigure this as however way you want. And with that, with the squatting, with the lunging, you can use machine based, you can use pin loaded base, you can use free weights with barbells or kettlebells or dumbbells. You can do all that, and you can load it at so many different ways, from both legs, both arms, one leg, one arm, same leg, opposite. So now you understand that it's like, okay, what is your constraint? Like thinking about this with the end in mind first, of how many days a week can I realistically work out? Let's do full body. Okay. Another reason why you might want to do full body is because life happens to you. And so then you know that if you plan for 3 workouts for that week, and say you weren't able to do session 3 or session 2 for whatever reason, the first one in the week, the middle of the week, or the end of the week, you know that you are still hitting all muscle groups at least once to twice or 3 times throughout the week. And that dosage really matters for the stimulus of the muscle and for you to train the movement pattern, to learn the skill too, because exercise is very much a skill. And a lot of exercises, there's a learning curve for each one. And so you do have to learn how to do them, how to practice it. And the more you practice the movement, the more it becomes autonomous to you, the more skilled you are at it. Also, from a strength perspective, you're able to consistently load it, and you get stronger as well. And you can also grow too. So strength is like a byproduct of hypertrophy. So the muscle's getting bigger. Also, from a practicing standpoint, the motor learning, a few of those different factors. So going back to this, if you have 3 days a week, that's why I prefer a lot of full body programs for people, is because it really fits them for their life. And you know that by the end of the week, if something did happen, you're able to hit every muscle group at least 1 to 3 times a week, and nothing really gets left behind compared to a traditional bodybuilding split, which there's nothing wrong with that. But if you only have 2 or 3 times a week to really train all the different movement, you really full body split just makes way more sense. Or you could even split this up, being like a full body one day, a upper one day, and then the third day could be a lower. That sequencing of the program works really well too. So there's a lot of ways to go about this. And now we understand the dates. We set up the framework for the day, the exercise skeleton. Now you can just go in and swap whatever you want. You can have like I said, from a machine, from a free weight, from a body weight, etc. But then this is also where understanding how much time each exercise is going to cost you. For example, if you want to back squat, if you want a barbell deadlift, understand that's going to cost you time, because those type of movements require a lot more like muscle motor recruitment and nervous system demand, and the time it takes for you to set up, to warm up, and then to also put all the weights away and to really rest that 2 to 3 minutes, up to 5 even, then that's going to eat away at your time. And if you got to prep, so those movements that are more globally systemically demanding, you maybe have to warm up a little bit more if you know that you're someone that just needs to have a longer warm up to prep yourself, prep your joints, prep your tissues for those things. I'm not saying a long or a short warm up is good or bad, depends on the person, and everyone's a little bit different. I know what the research says, what it says, but training is very psychological too. So for example, I need a longer warm up because it helps me inhibit some type of sensors or things like that, but it just helps me feel prepared and warm and psychologically to get myself in the rhythm to really go for it. But could I go into the gym and just free ball it? Of course I can, but I would probably sub out some of the barbell higher intensity movements that are way more demanding on me, that for more machines, like a leg extension and then like a hamstring curl machine, and then go into any push or press. And then I can just run through that so much faster than free weights or barbells, depending on the free weights, more the barbell side. The free weights, the dumbbells, the kettlebells, those you can move through that a little bit faster too. So these are things that I would recommend thinking about just variables, things to think about when you're figuring out what to do for your workout. Now, we've went over the movement patterns, a lot of ways to load them, planes of motion, and the 2 or 3 day splits, how many exercises, what you can actually do in that time. Now let's go to reps and sets and like intensity and like rest periods. So now we know that you don't have to do more exercises. It's not always better. It's how intentional, how purposeful can you execute those exercises, and are they in alignment with the goal that you're trying to get? And you can always change this every single month. So think you want to run the same play 4 weeks at a time. And so now going into reps and sets, how many reps should you do of each one? So this one really kind of depends on you, because what we've seen is there's something called the rep continuum. And the old model of thinking is that if you do exercises between 1 to 5 reps, for example, you're doing more like power and strength. You're doing something between like 6 to 10, it's more hypertrophy, like muscle growing. And then you do something above 10-ish reps, then that's more of like muscle endurance, which not saying is incorrect, but now we've learned that you can build muscle across all of the rep schemes as long as you are close to failure, as in 2 or 3 reps shy of failure. Do you have to go to failure? You do not. It is fun, and it's also a great way to test your limits and to learn intensity. So those are tools to play when appropriate. But if it helps you understand, and if you are somebody who is like demanding life, and say you are a busy person, you're a parent, you're doing all the things, and you don't get to go work out till like 8 o'clock at night, last thing you want to do is go to a 100% effort, as in RIR RPE of like 0 and 10. Probably just don't have that in you at that point. Not saying you're not giving 100% effort subjectively, but it's not like a moral thing like you are giving 100% effort, but you're giving that like 8 out of 10 effort on the lift, if that makes sense. So going into those intensities, what those acronyms mean, RPE stands for rate of perceived exertion. Think of this as how hard you are working, how hard the lift is. And there's a longer scale of 1 to 20, but the modified scale that everyone goes with is 1 to 10. And so think of this as how hard you're going. Say you're doing a leg extension machine, and I tell you, let's go with intensity of 8 to 10. So I want towards that like last few reps to feel like a 8 to 10, like 8 out of 10 scale. Sometimes that's tough for people to gauge because people haven't found that internal barometer in themselves to understand what that intensity means. So it just takes time to build that. Now, RIR is kind of what I like a little bit more. RIR is more in line with lifting. RPE can work for both the endurance world and also the lifting world. So RIR doesn't work for the endurance world, mainly just the lifting world. And with that one, think of that as, well, it's the acronym's broken down as reps in reserve. Sorry, had a brain fart there. Reps in reserve. So meaning how many reps do you have left in the tank? So with the same scenario of a leg extension exercise, say I am telling you I want you to do 8 reps. If I want you to do 8 reps, but an RIR of 2, then by that 7 to 8 reps, I want the last bit to feel like you only have 2 more reps. If I like really ask you, like if I really ask you, can you do 2 more, and just 2 more, not 3, not 4, and it takes time to fine tune this and learn this. But if you get to the end and you learn that you can do like 5 more, then we got to adjust the weight. So we aren't going heavy enough. So there's that too. So intensity, RPE is super helpful. RIR is also super helpful. And it depends on where you are as a person. Most people just starting out, I like using RPE just because they don't know what true intensity really feels like, what true intensity is, because they just don't know. They don't have that point of reference. And for most people, everyone really, those first month to 2 months are very neurological adaptations for people to really like prime their system. And so using that's really helpful until people are in or have been training consistently for about 2, 3, 6, whatever months. Then I like to switch over to RIR to really help people. Let's see. Okay, now let's kind of find that end range and let's see if we can really give it that oomph now that we've went over that learning curve a little bit with the RPE. But some people really just vibe best with RPE, and so we stick with that. Some people vibe better with RIR. It's just whichever ones that people anchor best to makes the most sense to them. One's not better or another. It just depends on the person. And so for me, for example, I do RIR for basically everything is what I use when it comes to like accessory movements, things like that. But when it comes to like those heavy barbell stuff, I'll alternate between RPE, RIR, percent, like percentages. Like I need you to hit 90% on this back squat today, or I need to hit you to hit 95% based off of your 1 rep max, things like that. So percentage work works really well for people to when you are working towards like a strength-based goal, but the RPE and RIR are really helpful auto-regulatory levers to use. That way, it meets people with where they're at on a daily cadence and weekly cadence. So that one's really more subjective, but really helps people to have a lot of autonomy and gauge it themselves. So, like for example, one day my RPE 9 out of 10 could be a 300-pound back squat because I only slept like 6 hours the night before. I'm really sleepy. The next day, I can probably lift an extra 100 pounds and it still feels like a 9 out of 10 because I just feel better that day. So it's auto regulating. So one's not better than another. They all have their time and place and depending on the person. Now, reps and sets. So kind of like what I was saying earlier, you can build muscle across any rep range as long as it's 2 to 3 reps shy of failure. So upper more than 85% of that 1 rep max. And so with that one, reps, completely up to you, but I like having people play around with reps schemes anywhere between sometimes in that 1 to 3, sometimes in that 6 to 8, sometimes in the 10 to 12. So it really just depends on the movement and what's the risk to reward ratio of it. So, and how fast you are able to recover from that. So a lot of like arm exercises like bicep curls, tricep extensions, overhead, lateral raises, things like that. I'll probably play more around that 10 to 12 rep range just to smash in some more volume and still intensity. But if I'm doing like a dumbbell bench press, a dumbbell row, things like that, I probably am going to be pushing more around that 6 to 8. 6 to 8 is my happy middle, where I found that people are able to really just put the foot down on the pedal for like more intensity to go heavier, but also it doesn't feel like an endurance event where it's so long because mechanical tension, the load of the thing that you're doing, it has to be heavy enough. That's really driving a lot of that physiological adaptation, especially if it's hypertrophy, maintaining it. So making sure that people are not underloaded. That 6 to 8 is an area that I like to hang out in majority of the time for a lot of exercises. And sometimes if we're really pushing strength and somebody really just wants to see how heavy they can lift, that 1 to 3 rep range is another good bracket to hang out in. So those are different reps. You can play around with all that and also understanding how much time you have and how intense the lift is will dictate how much rest time you need. So anywhere between 1 to 5 minutes. So think if you're doing less reps, but very high intensity, then you're probably going to want to rest a little bit more to give your nervous system time to recharge and you psychologically to recalibrate yourself to get up to go perform again. Now, if you're more in the middle, roughly a good rest period for me has always been 90 seconds to 2 minutes. But if you're short on time and you got to make everything go, 60 seconds is got to do what you got to do. It's collateral at that point. It's not the end of the world. Don't have to get dramatic about it. And so yeah, that's 2 to 4 sets on most things. Super helpful. That determines the volume, but then you know how to determine that by looking at how much time you actually have to train in the gym. So that will dictate a lot of that stuff. And another point I want to factor in here for you guys to think about is thinking about your center of mass and also your base of support. So when I say that is, for example, think about you just standing still. Like you just standing with your feet together. If I come up and push you, then you're most likely going to fall. You're probably going to like move that 1 foot back like a kickstand position. So that's you deviating your center, your base of support right there to catch yourself. Now that you're wider, now if you stand with your feet like staggered, if I come up and push you, you have a better base of support to not tip over and fall. And so that's something to think for people to do as well. So let's use the example of pressing something above you. Many people don't really press something above them very well because they'll like at the lumbar spine on that lower back, they start like really caving in, they get on their toes and chest goes really bit far back. People don't have great postural control of their scapula, so their like shoulders and their spine and their hips. And so if someone's pressing upward, that vertical press looks really ugly, then I'm going to adjust their center of mass with their base of support relative to it. Meaning, maybe we're not going to do a standing strict press. We are probably going to do a seated strict press. And if I still see that, that way I'm like cutting out the hips portion. But if I find that lower back, that spine column is still like over like arching, then I'm probably going to bring them down to like a half kneeling position or a tall kneeling to make sure that they are more structurally sound. And if that's not looking great from a tall kneeling to a half kneeling, then I'll lower them even lower to the ground to a seated or seated with their hand against a wall. So you can kind of see having somebody do an exercise like a strict press above them from a standing position, that's with their feet together. That's very challenging for people. You can see where things are going, the holes are going to be coming in. So if you got to lower yourself to the ground more, that means your base is widening. That means you have more stability. And that's less on your nervous system to start thinking about these different areas, joint angles, and areas to start like working through. And so the lower you lower somebody down, the more you kind of like split them up, kind of helps there. So something to kind of keep in mind too. That might have gone over a little too much, but I'm just going to leave it there. So this is a framework of how you can create your own 2 or 3 day full body split. A lot of these things are very principle based that you can drip out into like a push pull, a bro split as well. But most of this is very movement pattern. And when you also go through movement patterns, you get a lot of muscle groups worked without over relying on just over emphasizing on just one, knowing that basically everything's getting touched and you're all right. Hopefully this was really helpful. I know I ran through that kind of fast, but yeah, I'll refine. We'll get better. I think that was a good first take at this. Yeah. Anyways, thank you guys so much for listening. I hope this was helpful to you. If you have any questions about this at all or want me to go into more depth on any of this, just let me know in the comments. And if you haven't done so yet, please hit subscribe, like, share, comment, do all the good things, help your boy out. And I will see you in the next one. Much love, everybody.